good evening once again, depending on where you're joining us from. We hope you have had a very good first half of day one of the ICTforAg 2022. We particularly hope you are able to join our very insightful sessions and learn from practitioners in the space. I would like to share some of the insights that are picked from the sessions. Technology in agriculture is not scaling because we are asking the wrong question. How will farmers afford? The cost of agriculture technology needs to be spread across the value chain based on the benefits reaped by the value chain actors. Bundling of digital tools to address multiple challenges and provide end-to-end support across the value chain is necessary for scale to be achieved. Regenerative agriculture and control over productive assets, they could increase farm yields by 20 to 30%. There is thus a need to focus on closing the gender digital divide to enhance productivity. Farmers have the least control of farm data despite being the owners of this data. Empowering smallholder farmers to have more control over their data is critical to the improvement and protection of their livelihoods. It was also great to see participants actively engaged in the Q&A section and discussion threads. We hope you are also making meaningful connections with other attendees through these discussions. To reintroduce myself, my name is Rachel Wangare, a manager with the Business Consulting and Research Team at Intellecap, based in Nairobi, Kenya. And I am incredibly excited to be hosting you today for this session. I would now like to welcome you all to the keynote address at ICTforAg 2022. It is my great honor and privilege to introduce you to today's keynote speaker, Max Cuvellier, Head of Mobile for Development, M4D in short, at GSMA. M4D is singularly positioned at the intersection of the mobile ecosystem and the development sector to drive innovation in digital technology to reduce inequalities in our world, enabled by partnership with forward-thinking donors and a team of over 100 passionate professionals. Max joined GSMA in 2012 and held positions within various programs. He initially helped mobile operators and partners design solutions to ensure women in low and middle income countries do not get left out of the digital economy as part of the Connected Women program. He later launched the Ecosystem Accelerator program and headed the M4D Utilities program, which have allocated a combined $22 million grant funding to 85 ventures in more than 40 countries across Africa and Asia. Prior to joining GSMA, Max worked in the Middle East and Africa Innovation Unit of mobile operator Orange, based in Jordan and in France, and as a telecom strategy consultant with Altai Consulting, where he focused on partnerships on projects in Iraq and Afghanistan. He holds a master's in management from HTC Paris and a master's in international management from ISADA Barcelona, and is one of the young leaders of the French African Foundation, placed under the high patronage of the French and Ghanaian presidents. Max is passionate about technology and entrepreneurship and their combined impact on our planet, our societies, and our economies. Today, he will be focusing on how we can leverage digital to improve smallholder agriculture outcomes in LMICs. Over to you, Max.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for this introduction, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm really both honored and excited to be joining all of you today. Thank you very much to the ICTforAg organizers for this opportunity. I hear we've seen great content already throughout the event, and I hope this session won't disappoint. I know a 30-minute keynote can sound a little bit daunting, but the team and I have really tried to make it fast-paced and lively by bringing in some examples from our partners' work. There may even be a couple of videos, so hopefully the tech won't let us down today. Very briefly, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, even though Rachel gave a little bit of details already. So who are we? The GSMA itself is a trade association which represents the interest of the mobile ecosystem globally. Within GSMA, Mobile for Development is a department that's funded by the GSMA Foundation, which itself is supported by a range of bilateral and private donors and partners. And what we do at M4D is unique and always involve three components. The first one is digital innovation. The second one is a focus on social, economic, and climate impact. And the third one, which is really our uniqueness and is in our DNA, is looking for commercial business models that can sustain growth and impact at scale. And as such, we're working heavily with the private sector, both big and small. And the topic we work on are digital inclusion, financial inclusion, gender, digital utilities in urban settings, humanitarian climate, and of course, agri-tech. So what do we actually do in the digital agriculture space? So through our agri-tech program, our vision is to reach equitable and sustainable food chains that will empower farmers and strengthen local economies. With this vision, our mission is to bring the stakeholders in the ecosystem together to help launch, improve, and scale digital solutions for farmers in the developing world that are both impactful and commercially viable. We work towards this goal through a number of activities. Through our research and insights work, for instance, we inform the donor and the investor community, as well as service providers themselves, on the operational and business models that have the highest potential for impact and sustainability. And the body of insights and research that we produce is all publicly available on our website. Another very important part of our work is innovation funds and technical assistance. By providing this funding to de-risk projects, coupled with deep technical expertise to service providers, we really support scalable commercial digital solutions that impact stakeholders, smallholder farmers, and the agricultural industry at large. The Agritech Innovation Fund for the digitization of agricultural value chain is currently underway with 7 grants allocated across Africa, South and Southeast Asia. And naturally, besides our research and technical assistance work, we also facilitate partnerships, collaborations, and synergies with other partners. The work that the program is doing is funded by several donor partners, namely the UK's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, DFAT Australian Aid, and the Digital Agri Hub. So, why is it important to focus on agriculture in low and middle income countries? I'm sure a lot of you listening in today know the context actually better than I do, but for the broader audience, I think it's helpful to just set the scene very briefly and remind ourselves of how critical the agricultural sector is. The sector remains a crucial contributor to the economies of many low and middle income countries, accounting for between 5 and up to 35% of GDP, and in some cases up to 85% of the population being employed by the agricultural sector. In most countries, agriculture is still dominated by smallholder farming, and we have nearly 500 million households that depend on smallholder farming globally for their food, for their income, and more broadly for their livelihood. They manage together around 25% of the world's cropland and produce 1/3 of the world's food. However, and despite its role in the food value chain, smallholder agriculture specifically has the highest incidence of people living below the poverty line and with hunger compared to any other sector. So this is why strengthening smallholder agriculture is a critical part of any strategy, long-term development strategy to reduce both poverty and hunger. According to the World Bank, actually, agricultural development is one of the most powerful tools to end extreme poverty, boost shared prosperity, and feed the world. And it wouldn't be right to talk about the impact of agriculture and smallholder agriculture in particular only through a socioeconomic lens. Agriculture is a big contributor to climate change globally, but the sector is also highly vulnerable to it. The IPCC estimates that agriculture is directly responsible for up to 8.5% of all greenhouse gas emissions globally, and this number actually goes up to 23% if you also include forestry and land use change. Emissions from agriculture have nearly doubled in the past 50 years, and they're expected to grow still by 30% by 2050. And though their individual contribution to climate change is limited, smallholder farmers in particular are really vulnerable to it, especially in low and middle income countries where 90% of smallholder farming is still rain-fed. Unfortunately, there's still very few services that are helping them respond to and recover from the external shocks on top of climate change, and also influenced by climate change, such as COVID-19 and the locust swarms of 2020. If you take insurance, for instance, you today have less than 3% of smallholder farmers in Africa, for instance, that have access to agricultural insurance. And in this context, more and more people realize that technology can provide some answers to these challenges. At COP26 in Glasgow last November, world leaders launched an international plan to deliver affordable and accessible clean technology everywhere by 2020. The Glasgow Breakthrough Agenda identifies agriculture as one of the 5 key economic sectors and set a specific target to make climate resilient, sustainable agriculture the most attractive and widely adopted option by farmers everywhere by 2030. And when it comes to technology that can address such large numbers, there is one that comes straight to mind: mobile technology. The ubiquity of mobile technology has already led to the development and uptake of a wide range of digital services globally, including digital agriculture solutions that can play a key role in supporting the agriculture sector in low and middle income countries in particular. Mobile internet connectivity has grown rapidly, extremely rapidly in the past decade, with now more than half of the world's population using the internet on their phone, compared to just a third only 6 years ago. Globally, mobile internet coverage continues to grow, with 94%, 94, of the world's population today covered by mobile broadband. Of course, owning a smartphone, this is not the phone I was hanging, this would be more like it, is fundamental for adopting and using mobile internet to its full potential. Growth continues everywhere, but it is still lagging in certain regions, Africa in particular, where smartphones account for less than half of total connections. On the continent, basic and feature phones still account for 45% of all connections. I really want to stress that this is not just another statistic. It is extremely important when designing products and services. I'm assuming most of us attending this event today have a smartphone, but it is worth constantly reminding ourselves that the populations we're trying to serve really often don't. In particular, I always encourage entrepreneurs or practitioners to try to start with the problem they're trying to address and the people they're trying to reach, and then design the solution around the technology they have access to, rather than starting with the usual, we're going to build an app to do so and so. You would actually be surprised, even maybe shocked, by the number of people who reach out to us in the agri-tech space and beyond, asking us how to build an app for so and so, and how quickly in the conversation it becomes clear that an app would actually not be fit for purpose, given their target customers own a phone like this one. And this is particularly true for populations that are more likely to be digitally excluded. Yes, mobile internet adoption, as I was saying, has been growing rapidly, but the unconnected and the lesser connected, if I can say, are still more likely to be poorer, to be less educated, to be rural, to be older, and to be women. In the case of smallholder farmer agriculture, this resonates particularly for rural populations, of course, and for women. Women and people living in rural areas are still less likely to be aware of mobile internet. People in rural areas are increasingly using the mobile internet, but there is a significant rural-urban gap that remains. Women lag behind, rural populations lag behind, and as you can imagine, rural women in particular lag behind. And unfortunately, as we published just yesterday, the pandemic we're seeing is reversing some of the hard-earned gains of the past few years, with the gender gap in mobile internet usage, but also in smartphone access, actually increasing in 2021 for the first time in years. So of course, mobile is not just about basic mobile services or the mobile internet. Since M-Pesa was launched in Kenya in 2007 as a bit of a niche product used to just send money home, mobile money has grown in Kenya and beyond at an extraordinary rate, and its value proposition has evolved significantly. Mobile money is today a key vehicle for financial inclusion in low and middle income countries. Its role is already a reality, and it keeps getting stronger with 310 live services across nearly 100 countries today. Mobile money is basically available in almost all of the markets where access to traditional financial services is low. In 2020, the number of registered mobile money accounts grew by 13%, 1/3 globally, to reach 1.2 billion accounts, double the forecasted growth rate. There are now over 300 million monthly active mobile money accounts worldwide. Not only are customers using their accounts more frequently, but they're also using them for new and more advanced use cases. And we'll come back to that in the case of agriculture. This growth was fueled by the pandemic, which encouraged a lot of individuals and businesses to turn to mobile financial services to improve their resilience to lockdowns, but also to receive relief payments, for instance. And given that mobile money accounts are usually relatively easy to sign up for and can be accessed from a basic phone via USSD, mobile money is also an important channel for women's financial inclusion in particular. However, there are still significant disparities in the percentage of adults who own a mobile money account between countries and within countries between men and women. Now, how is technology being used practically to support smallholder agriculture? Well, we're seeing a rise in data-driven, more quote-unquote intelligent digital agriculture services, examples of which you can see at the bottom of this slide. Broadly, there are 4 types of mobile and digital assets that are enabling all of this at scale. The first 2 are the ones we just covered, mobile services and mobile payments. Mobile phones are the key channel for service delivery at the quote-unquote front end directly to farmers. And remember, I know I've said it again, but I'll probably say it again. I said it already, but I'll probably say it again. This is not just about smartphones. USSD and SMS are still a reality for most farmers. The third one is front-end technologies. These are the technologies that are usually frontier technologies, the technologies that are usually enabling innovation more at the back end. For example, these include artificial intelligence-based agri-tech solutions that help farmers understand how to identify and respond to crop disease or to changing rainfall patterns, for example. It can also be sensor-based agricultural solutions that will support the automation of on-farm operations. And now the fourth is data assets. And because beyond delivering services, mobile technology also has a role to play in generating better data for creating and contextualizing services and for enabling evidence-based decision-making, especially linked to climate. The end goal, and that's at the top of the diagram, being to enable greater access to services, for instance, insurance or advisory, greater access to markets, for instance, by helping farmers access buyers or actually having direct access to consumers, and also greater access to productive assets, for instance, such as tractors or smart irrigation systems. A lot of digital agricultural solutions have emerged to mitigate the range of challenges faced by smallholder farmers, including low productivity and income, poor access to markets, financial inclusion, and obviously climate change. Digital agriculture is also enabling other actors in agricultural value chain, from agribusinesses to cooperatives, to increase efficiencies in the agricultural last mile. As I just mentioned, we have segmented digital agriculture solutions into 3 broad categories of access that further break down into, I would say, 5 main use cases. The first one is farm management and advisory services that provide information about agronomic best practices, pests and diseases, weather or market prices, including the services that are tailored to the specific farmer, to a specific farm, or to a specific field. And obviously, provided this type of extremely targeted services requires a lot of data and relevant weather forecasting. But we'll come back to this point in a couple of minutes. Finance, the second one, refers to digitally enabled financial services relevant for smallholder farmers, such as digital payments for the sale of crops, for instance, or credit and savings products, or insurance. These so-called agricultural digital financial services support the farmers to better manage the risk involved in agricultural production, and also to allow them to invest in the longer term growth of their farms. Digital solutions for supply chain management are business-to-business services that help agri-businesses, cooperatives, agro-dealers, and other value chain intermediaries working directly with smallholder farmers to manage the flow of goods and services in the supply chain. And in doing so, reduce the cost and increase the efficiency. Fourth is market linkage solutions that link smallholder farmers to farm inputs, to production and post-harvest automation services, such as irrigation and tractors, as I said before, or to off-taker markets, including agro-dealers, wholesalers, retailers, or even the end customers. For instance, if you take Twiga Foods in Kenya, who was supported back in 2017 through our FCDO-funded Ecosystem Accelerator Innovation Fund, they realized that the price of bananas for small stall vendors in Nairobi was actually comparable to the price of bananas in Tesco in London, though there are bananas being produced a few hundred miles outside of Nairobi. So what they did is to rebuild the value chain for fruit and vegetable delivery from those farmers to the stall vendors in the capital, and therefore removing unnecessary intermediaries, controlling quality, improving the selling price for farmers, and the price and the quality for the end users. And finally, smart farming solutions are using on-farm and remote sensors to generate and transmit data about specific crop, specific animal, or specific practice to enable the automation of on-farm practices. Now, listening to me explain how digital agriculture can support smallholder farmers is one thing, but what does it mean on the ground? To get a better feel of that, I would like us to head virtually to Tanzania to look at an example of a digital agriculture solution, M-Kulima, provided by a local mobile operator, Vodacom. And that's when we hope the videos work.
Mkoa wetu una vitu vingi ambavyo vinaweza vikawa ni access kwa Watanzania kuja kuwekeza. Tumeona wenzetu wa Vodacom wamefikia wakulima wengi. Ninaamini kwamba kwenye miaka mitatu matarajio ya mkoa wa Simiyu kuona wakulima wote wamedigitalize kilimo kikiwa kwenye kiganja chao, litakuwa ni jambo ambalo tulikuwa tumefanikiwa kwa kiwango kikubwa.
Kulipwa hela kwenye simu imesaidia kwanza ule upotevu, kule kuibiwa, na pale utauza pamba yako, hela utaingiziwa kwenye simu yako. Hakuna mtu atakayekutolea simu halafu akatoa hela.
Ukiangalia huko nyuma, miaka ya nyuma, fedha tunachukua mjini. Kwa lazima tuende Mwanza, tunachukua zile fedha, nikumbuka ni kilomita zaidi ya 120 kutokea Mwanza, tunasafiri na zile hela nyingi. Kwa riski yake ilikuwa ni kubwa. Lakini tuna njia tunayotumia tuna kodi ndege, tuna uwanja wetu wa ndege hapa, lakini gharama ya kukodi ndege ni kubwa. Kwa huu mfumo tunaushukuru umekuja kutoa hizo riski pamoja na gharama nyingine ambazo zilikuwa sio za lazima.
Swala likubwa sana ambalo tunaliona la haraka ni kwamba mkulima anapouza mazao yake angependa alipwe haraka. Serikali ilisema wakulima walipwe cashless. Makampuni kama Alliance General na kadhalika ambao tumefanya nao kazi kwa karibu sana wameweza kuwalipa wakulima sasa kwenye simu zao. Zaidi ya shilingi bilioni 3 zimeshalipwa kwa wakulima kwenye simu zao, na wakulima wameweza kuzitoa kwenye mawakala wetu ambao wameenea mkoa mzima.
M-Kulima, kilimo cha kisasa.
Kilimo cha kisasa.
M-Kulima, kilimo cha kisasa.
Thank you very much for playing the video. I think it's a great example of how digitizing payment across the agricultural value chain can make a difference. And beyond specific solutions, what we're also seeing emerge is what we're calling bundling, which is basically a strategy that's aimed at developing holistic end-to-end solutions to address multiple user and customer needs. In the case of digital agriculture, what we're observing is an evolution from highly specialized services toward more bundled solutions that address multiple farmer challenges, as well as challenges of other value chain actors like agribusinesses. Digital agriculture is increasingly delivered as a comprehensive package of digital products and services sold as a single combined unit, offering broader, more holistic support for farmers and other actors in the value chain. As an example, Cultiva, which is a grantee of our Innovation Fund for the Digitization of Agricultural Value Chains, is an agri-tech company in Indonesia utilizing proprietary technologies and services to enhance global supply chain traceability, inclusiveness, and sustainability. They offer 5 key products and services with multiple modules targeting different actors in the agricultural value chain, from farmers to financial institutions, processors, and manufacturers. They provide farmer information services, including capacity building on financial literacy, on digital procurement, on traceability. And this horizontal integration is a strategy that's followed by more and more actors in the space. Now, as we near the end of this presentation, we cannot be talking about digital agriculture without highlighting the important role it can play in improving the climate resilience of smallholder farmers, from short-term responses to long-term adaptation. In this slide, you can see the 4 approaches to managing climate change. There's recovery that offers a response to kind of direct impacts of climate change, like droughts or heavy rainfall, while response allows farmers to adjust to climate change, for example, by leveraging weather forecasts. Adaptation, which is extremely important, can take place when farmers are aware of the longer-term shifts in climate affecting them and have the resources to adopt practices that will maximize their productivity in this new context. And finally, mitigation measures can reduce the net carbon emissions of agriculture and contribute to climate change mitigation. Advances in digital technologies, including space tech, artificial intelligence, and mobile communications more broadly, have enabled innovations in digital services from a variety of players that support the climate resilience of smallholder farmers across all 4 dimensions. Now I want us to head back to the field, again virtually, to see what this means in action. SunCulture, which is a past grantee of our FCO-funded M4D Utilities Innovation Fund, provides solar-powered irrigation solutions to farmers that they combine with pay-as-you-go financing to make irrigation accessible.
Two-thirds of the African workforce are involved in agriculture, and most of those people live off-grid. Their yields trail world averages by about 50%, which means Africa is only contributing to about 15% of global agriculture output. And in Kenya, it's even worse. Over 80% of the land is not suitable for rain-fed agriculture. Only 3% of Kenyans actually irrigate. So there's this big divide between how many farmers irrigate and how many farmers need to irrigate to become productive.
We had nothing green here. It was always dry. Like you see, we used like 20 to 30 minutes to get water from the well. It was very hard work for me, for us all.
So we went to GSMA and we said, we're gonna do 2 things that no one else in the world has done. First, we're gonna bring the cost of solar-powered irrigation down by 90%. And then second, we're gonna finance it under our Pay-as-you-grow program. And GSMA said, let's do it.
SunCulture niliamua shauri ya kwa kuwa ni kurahisisha kazi ile nafanya, sababu kama wakati huu mimi naona si gumu kupalilia namna ya kupanda hii kitu, nanyunyuzia vizuri kila mahali na ni rahisi baada ya kubeba kutoka chini.
Mobile money has allowed us to scale quickly without having to worry about cash transfers. It keeps our customers safer, keeps our employees safer, and allows us to have more visibility into the way that our customers use our products.
The pump system works with the solar. We have solar panels, we have battery, we connect the machine like this, and water goes to the tank. And that's it.
And what the future of this looks like is us being able to get real-time information from the weather, from the product, from the soil, to be able to give real-time, customized advice to the farmer, so that farmer can maximize the value of their farm.
Before we had this pump, we didn't have any harvest. We planted maize, we planted beans, we could not get anything for about 3 years now. And with the pump, we get produce every year.
We have a solution that could directly improve the livelihoods of the 500 million smallholder farming families around the world. I think access to connectivity, access to water, and access to high-value nutritious foods are basic human rights. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Thank you very much. I think you can clearly see how this kind of solutions can be critical for farmers to manage water resources, to increase their productivity, and to become more climate resilient. Now, there are two last points that I want to make before wrapping up, and I hope you'll allow me a couple more minutes here. The first one is that this is not just a concept, it is happening. In the past 3-4 years, we've seen growing interest in digital agriculture from the investor community, from impact investors all the way to venture capitalists. Increasingly, digital agriculture solutions are becoming scalable and commercially sustainable ventures and are being supported by investors seeking financial as much as impact returns. Just looking at Africa, funding in agritech has grown exponentially from just $50,000 in 2015 to over $95 million in 2021, with sustained growth during the pandemic. Agritech, however, still represents only about 2.6% of the funding raised, according to Disrupt Africa. And finally, I want to conclude briefly with a view on the impact of digital agriculture on smallholder farmers. And I'll quote here a Mercy Corp review of their portfolio that found that digital agriculture has a positive impact on the livelihoods and lifestyles of women farmers in particular. And that 50% of farmers report an increased ability to cope with and recover from external shocks by leveraging savings, insurance, advisory, and irrigation. Our own monitoring and evaluation found that 3/4 of farmers find the process of getting digital loans faster than with a traditional bank, and that farmers also report a high level of trust in SMS digital procurement receipts. These are only a few examples of the impact that digital agriculture services are having. So in short, if I wanted to summarize, I would say that digital agriculture is not a concept anymore. Quite the opposite. It has developed into a very diverse field. It is being implemented on the ground at scale. It is being invested in, and it is having an impact. Now, that's it for today's presentation, and 30 minutes, at least on my side, really did fly by. We've only scratched the surface, but there are many more opportunities in the event for you to dig deeper, obviously. And please do not hesitate to visit our website for more and to get in touch with the team if you think that we can work together. Thanks everyone for joining in today. Thank you for the ICTforAg organizers for this opportunity. Thank you to our donor partners who make this work possible. And finally to the GSMA Agritech team for their passion and also for their support in preparing this talk. Back to you, Rachel.
Thank you, Max, for that truly poignant and insightful keynote address, highlighting the tools at our disposal and inspiring us all to continue striving for a more sustainable and equitable future. With that, I thank you all for joining us today for the keynote address, and I hope to see you at our other sessions lined up today. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you once again for joining us.